If you want to talk about what I believe, we could talk about that. But when we talk about
Yeah.
knowledge, I'm not. I have difficulty with the concept of knowledge in general. I don't. I
Yeah.
don't. I don't understand that.
So you want to justify knowledge is what you want to do?
I'd love to.
Okay. Why do you want to justify knowledge?
I think it would be a lot easier to make decisions.
So what necessitates the issue of justification of the justification of your knowledge?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
You presuppose something that you need to justify things. Well, what justifies that presupposition to begin with?
I don't know if I would say that I need to justify things.
You want to justify, right? So it's just an opinion, just a subjective preference.
No, I don't. I don't think I even want to. I think I just do by.
You don't want to. You're just
virtue of
controlled by some
existence.
outside force.
It may seem that way. Yeah.
Okay. So it seems like you're controlled by an outside force. So you're not doing your own thinking.
I'm not doing my own thinking.
If you're controlled by an outside force, you're not doing your own thinking.
I'm not sure that follows necessarily that
If you're not,
because
if you're not doing your own thinking, who's doing your thinking for you?
I'm not. I don't think I ever said that I wasn't doing my own thinking.
Well, I'm just playing off of what you said.
You were asking if there could be outside forces involved in producing justifications, right, for the experiences that I have.
I asked about justification. You said you didn't. There wasn't any logical necessity. You implied that it was just something you want to do. Then I talked about what that was, and you got kind of, you're just.
You were talking about my experience. My experiences.
Do you know who Angstrix is?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah. So you're just playing his game, right?
I don't know if I'm playing his game.
You don't know?
I'm not attempting to play his game, if that's what you're asking. But if
he might be worse than Angstrike.
If there's a situation in which I'm saying some of the same things that he does, then you could categorize me that way if you'd like to. I'm not sure.
Why do you want to have a conversation with me?
Because I have an interest towards learning new things, and I think that you might be able to offer something to that conversation.
Okay. What do you want to learn?
Oh, at first, I'd like to see if there's a logical contradiction in the concept of agnosticism when it comes to.
I already explained it to you. It's a subdivision of atheism. And in atheism, you cannot account for rationality. You cannot account for morals. You can't account for our own existence.
But what's the contradiction, though?
You cannot account for them. That means you can't even account for your own atheism, your own agnosticism. Your worldview doesn't even permit you to validate it in any way. So therefore, it's the only thing left. It's just not an objective verification. It's a subjective one.
Yeah,
and subjectivism ultimately leads to self-refutation.
Right. Yeah, atheism claims a certain truth about the nature of reality, but it doesn't even permit truth claims about the nature of reality.
Yeah, I'll tackle it one person at a time. Clean our own fish. Okay.
Well, I'm not entirely convinced that agnosticism is a subdivision of atheism, but that's okay. We could
It is,
talk about that
because you don't know if God exists, and you don't function in the world as though God exists. Atheists don't function in the world as though God exists. Agnosticism is a subdivision of atheism.
Well, I'm not specifically talking about functioning in this world. I'm talking about functioning inside the system of logic, right? When we're talking about reason, we negate
inside a system of logic. You presuppose logic.
Well, for the sake of a conversation, we're talking about a logical incoherency. Then, of course, certainly.
What justifies that logic is true?
Well, this is a hypothetical.
In your agnosticism.
It's true. If we want to have that conversation outside of that, then that's a different question than what I've asked.
You're the one who presupposed that we need to use logic. Okay, I'm just going with what you said in your agnosticism.
It's not that
how do you justify the laws of logic by which you argue?
Matt, it's not that I presuppose that. It's part of the hypothetical that we presented, right?
Oh, so you don't even know if logic is logical and true?
Is that what you just got out of what I just said?
Yes, I am. I'm asking you questions for clarification.
No, I'm asking you if that's what you got out of what I just said.
That's why I'm asking the question, obviously.
Then no. Do I accept the laws of logic for sake of this conversation? Yes.
Oh, just for this conversation? Do you not accept them with some other conversation?
Sure, I'd be willing to entertain the idea of not having those. But here's the thing, Matt. The reason why I've asked you is
let's not have the laws of logic in this conversation.
But that's not what I wanted, right? When I
No,
asked you the
I don't
question.
agree with green plus 2. No, I don't agree with that.
Thank you for playing, sir. I'm done.
Good. Next.
Not even for the sake of a conversation, Matt.
Incoherence in a conversation occurs just like that. When someone doesn't know anything and they want to keep backing up to say, I don't know, and verify, well, there's always going to be something they're going to have to verify because they have assumptions. If they're going to say their assumptions aren't verified anything, or they're, don't have to attack them, that's not going to work. I'm just going to keep coming forward
No,
at them until they give up like that
I'm
guy
sorry,
did.
Matt. I appreciate it, but the conversation ended when we asked to have a conversation inside the realms of logic, and you wanted to go outside of that. And that's
I didn't
okay
want to
if
go
you wanted
outside of
to.
that.
Matt,
I'm
it's
not doing
okay.
that.
Look,
I
Matt, please
said
don't
what
interrupt me. I wasn't
justifies your
finished.
logic.
Matt, please
I
don't
said what
interrupt me.
justifies your logic.
Matt, you're over talking. Sir, you're over talking me.
How old are you?
Excuse me. Are you inferring something by asking my
I want
age?
to know. Yeah, I want to know how old you are. Seriously.
Can anybody chime in here?
See, the thing is, you're the one who brought up logic. I'm asking you to justify the very logic by which you're assuming its validity. That you play some game with me. I don't need to be playing a game with you.
Matt, the issue I have is that you're trying to have a conversation that I wasn't trying to have, and then you use this, what does the color green smell like, purple, yes.
What
What
conversation
is that,
do you want to
Matt?
have? What conversation do you want to have?
Well, I wanted to have a conversation inside the bounds of logic, but
Okay, go ahead.
and I can expect you to stay within that, and we're not going to do this.
We'll use logic. Okay? We'll be logical. All right?
Sure. So what's the contradiction
I already told you.
in agnosticism?
Told you.
Okay, can you repeat it because I didn't hear it?
Agnosticism is a subdivision of atheism. It's a functionality philosophically of God not existing in your explanatory realm. But atheism, and like agnosticism, since you don't have any explanatory issues including God, you must then work without excluding him. But you cannot then justify the universality of the laws of logic or any moral absolutes or our own existence from that perspective of not including God in explanatory power. So therefore, since it's not objective, because these are externals, it must be subjective, and subjectivity is ultimately self-refuting because you can't even know if your view is correct about anything. It's just your subjective opinion. So therefore, you can't trust that worldview. Therefore, it's self-refuting.
So, Matt, I appreciate your contribution in response to that, but that's not an answer to the question.
Okay, well, then we can talk to somebody else. I gave you an answer, and you say it's not an answer. Yes, it is an answer. I told you how. I connected the dots. You're the one with the problem.
No, it wasn't look. It wasn't an implicit answer, right? Explicitly, yes, you were making sounds out of your mouth in response to the question that I asked.
Just sounds. Oh, that's what it's reduced to now. Sounds.
Well, it's not too far from just being simply sounds, Matt. I'm not trying to be offensive.
One step at a time, then. Is agnosticism a subdivision of atheism because both exclude God as a possibility of explanation?
I think in order for that to be true, theism would have to be necessarily the case.
I asked you about agnosticism and atheism. You want to be logical. Stick to the topic and don't offer me what's called red herrings.
So when we're talking about logic,
atheism and agnosticism both are functionally excluding God as explanatory power.
That's not necessarily true, though, Matt.
Yes, it
you
is.
understand inside the realm of logic what I mean when I say necessarily true, right? That you can
like if you're an agnostic, you might just say, "I don't know the explanation." It doesn't mean that you ruled God out as possibly explaining it, and haven't ruled it in as an explanation.
That's a better way for you to go, but it still has problems. And I've already explained the problem.
But I don't think that when you're presenting theism, that you're presenting theism as a situation where you believe in God necessarily a priori, which would have to be the case if agnosticism was the rejection or the negation of such a claim, and for it to be a subdivision of atheism. So I'm not sure that necessarily follows in that sense, that it's a rejection of theism a priori.
What we were talking about was not that. You want to be logical, so be logical. Stick to the topic. We're talking about your agnosticism. That's it. I'm asking you within your agnosticism what justifies certain things. That's what you were talking about. Did you want justification? You brought it up. Okay, so I'm asking you to justify things in your agnosticism. And now what you're trying to do is shift the burden on me.
Matt, I think
You're
there's
the one who opened your mouth and put your foot in it.
Matt, I think
So
there's some
I'm just
confusion
helping
here.
there is on your part. Go ahead.
I'm perfectly happy accepting that the possibility that there might be confusion on my part. But if we refer to my previous statements, I mentioned agnosticism as an external object, right? I didn't necessarily say my agnosticism.
Are
I
you an
asked you from
agnostic
your.
or not?
I don't think that's relevant, Matt, to this.
Okay, I'm not going to have a conversation with somebody if I don't know what they affirm or deny. If I'm going to have a conversation and someone like you just says, well, I don't know, it's not my position, I didn't say it was or didn't say it wasn't, give me a break. I could just see you and I in a public debate. Moderator's there, the audience is there, and I ask, are you an agnostic? I don't know if it relates to anything.
It doesn't matter.
Relate to anything. Are you believe in God? Don't know if it relates to anything. Why are we here? That's an invalid question. That's what it would be like with you.
Why not just tell them like an adult? I mean, that's a reasonable request to know your philosophical ideas or whatever. I mean, that's
Zafar, are you going to be adding anything else of intellectual value to this conversation, or should we just go ahead and set that as the bar for what we're going to expect from you?
You set the bar and you set it awfully low.
Well, I set the bar at logic, right, and asked you the question of what's the. Oh, sorry. Did you have something to say about that?
Go ahead, try it again.
Okay, thank you. I set the bar at logic, which you agreed that we want to stick to the logic of it. So why is it necessarily important that we have some sort of understanding of external frameworks outside of the argument and the hypothetical? Why do you need to know what I believe or what anybody else believes when we're talking about specifically inside the realms of logic? We both understand the system of logic, I assume.
Because I cater my answers to the people's presuppositions.
Do the answers depend?
You asked.
Does the truth depend on somebody's presuppositions, or is the truth independent of those presuppositions?
Truth. Look, you're an agnostic, right?
Look, I don't think that's relevant. I want to understand.
Yes, it's relevant.
I want to understand why are you giving different answers to one person over another?
Because they have different assumptions. I cater my answers to different people who have different assumptions. If you say you're a Mormon, then I'm going to be tackling it from that perspective. If you say you're an evolutionist materialist, I'll be tackling from that perspective.
Interesting.
Perfectly reasonable.
Would you be willing to assume that we have the same assumptions about logic in the sense of what it means to have propositional truths?
What I will say is that you use the laws of logic, but in order to do so, you have to borrow from the Christian worldview. You don't even recognize your own inconsistency in this. You don't want to play by the real world, the real philosophical issues.
Well,
I'm not going to give you ground and say that you, as an unbeliever, are capable of arguing rationally by presupposing my perspective, the Christian worldview. Which only the Christian worldview can justify the universality of the laws of logic. And since you won't acknowledge that, we have an impasse. What you want to do is have me violate my conscience, violate my logic, violate what I believe and assume, in order to argue on your territory. It's not going to work like that.
Well, it certainly wasn't my intention to have you violate anything. I was hoping that we could have a conversation with logic absent of a justification for logic, right? But it seems like that's not possible from your perspective. Is that the case?
The only way we can account for your logical argumentation is by presupposing the Christian God. What you want to do is go into Christian God's yard and throw rocks at a Christian God's window. And you don't even realize that this is what you're doing. You want to have an argument? Great. You're the one who brought up justification for knowledge. You brought that up. So I'm asking you to justify why the laws of logic are what they are.
I find the throwing rocks at a window a strange analogy for the question of asking for the logical contradiction in agnosticism.
See, I already gave you the answer to that. I gave you the answer to that, I think, 3 times now. You're just being recalcitrant. That's all. being obstinate.
But it's not my intention
You're
to
the
be
one who brought up the issue of justification of knowledge. Okay, great. You presuppose that laws of logic are true. Okay, justify it.
But again, Matt, we've covered this
You
earlier.
can you?
Matt, should I wait for you to say that you're finished, or
I'm just
when you're
asking you to
talking?
do what you said you want to do. You want to justify your knowledge. You have the knowledge. Justify why that knowledge of the laws of logic is true. Justify it from your perspective.
But maybe I'm mistaken, Matt, and that's fine. I just want to make sure because it feels like it seems like of just a few minutes ago we agreed that the justification for knowledge was a separate issue, or justification, excuse me, for logic was a separate issue altogether. That we were specifically focusing inside the bounds of logic. Is that not the case anymore? Have you gone back on that?
I said we could work within the bonds of logic. I didn't say that you don't have the obligation to justify those laws of logic when you're the one who brought up the issue of justification of your knowledge. Are you going back on what you said?
I think
Matt, can I just ask you
that doesn't
something?
make sense. Zafar, we've already seen what you've been able to contribute to the conversation, and frankly, just at this time, I'm not really interested. I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you later.
What are you
Well,
talking
Matt,
about? I feel
when
like-
you
Matt,
when
the
I don't know who you're
reason
talking
I'm
about.
curious about the contradiction in agnosticism, it would seem as if you'd be willing to agree that there's not necessarily a contradiction in agnosticism, but the contradiction of the issue lies with the very fact that the existence of logic rests on the fact that it cannot exist absent its constitutive property, that is, God. Is that the case?
Nice try. So you're the one who brought up the issue of wanting to work in logic. You're the one who brought up the issue of justification of knowledge. You're the one who did this. That's how you initiated a conversation. You came after me. You pursued me. All right. So we talked about. I said, "What are you?" You said agnostic, and then you later don't want to say it or whatever. I said, "Okay." So I said, agnosticism is a subdivision of atheism. Both have the perspective of trying to explain phenomena, philosophical points, without God as a possibility. Well, when you exclude that, then you don't have any foundation to work on. You don't have any objective truths outside of yourselves by which you can judge truth statements. And since that means no objectivity, what's left is subjectivity. Subjectivity is self-refuting because it's just subjective opinions about what you think is right or wrong. You asked how it's self-refuting. That's how it's self-refuting. It leads to subjectivity.
So I'd like to clarify because I apologize if you're feeling attacked. It's not my intention to make you feel attacked. My goal in focusing on inside the realm of logic is to focus the conversation and to stay on task. So when I mentioned the question or asked a question specifically about agnosticism in the bounds of logic, asking for a particular contradiction, it seems like in order to do that, you're asking about my personal opinions about agnosticism or asking about justifications for logic. But those, again, if we want to stay on task, that's a separate issue that I think could be solved in another conversation, or we could have another conversation about. But Matt, we're having difficulty getting past this first step of accepting the logical consistency or the lack of a contradiction for agnosticism as a solution inside of logical reason, right?
Yeah, we're having a problem because of your agnosticism. It does not allow you to go beyond the ability of your mind to think. It's restricted. I've already given you, this is the fourth time I've explained this, what the problem is.
So, again, none of that was an answer to the question of whether there's a contradiction, a logical contradiction for an argument for agnosticism.
Oh,
So,
I see what you want, a specific narrow thing of a logical contradiction. All right, I'm just showing you how it doesn't work, how it's self-refuting. Both of them are defeaters. If I can show you a logical contradiction, agnosticism is defeated. If I can show you that it's subjective and is self-refuting, by self-refutation, it is a logical defeater, second law of classical logic. So since it's self-refuting because of its subjectivity, therefore it's defeated. I've done what you've asked. This is the 5th time I've explained this to you.
Matt, and I can respect that you feel like you've done so, but you've refuted the basis for logic as a system for criticizing agnosticism to begin with. You haven't necessarily criticized agnosticism as a response inside of logic. So when you say that it's self-refuting, why would you then go outside of the system of logic to justify that contradiction when that's not our target, right?
What's our target?
Our target is inside of the realm of logic.
So you want to just presuppose logic exists and the laws of logic, their universality and their ubiquity, right?
Well, if you have maybe I'm wrong here, but if you have a problem with the hypothetical, then we could have stopped the conversation at the very beginning. But you've accepted this conversation, and I'm assuming it's in good faith that you want to have that dialogue.
I'm not even sure what you really want to talk about. You've switched on several different issues here. You're the one who brought up justification about knowledge. So I worked with you from that, and now you're distancing yourself from that. Now what you want to do is narrow it down to some logical realm, which is what you want me to do, is to violate my own conscience and give to you, an unbeliever, an equal standing with the mind of God to be able to judge what truth is apart from God. Can't do that, and I won't let you do it. I'm just not going to do it.
So I think
you have no justification.
So I think that the difficulty is that there might have been a little bit more of a brief context shift from our conversation about justification for knowledge into the specific direct question about a refutation for the logical consistency or the lack of a contradiction in agnosticism, right? And you keep referencing that prior conversation, and I can understand how you could be confused by that because we did switch right out of that conversation. But to
No,
be
you
very,
did. I didn't. You don't include me in it. I'm holding you to what it is you said. And now you're the one shifting and saying, now we're shifting. Wait a minute. No. I'm sticking to what you said, and I've repeatedly said the same thing about what you said.
Matt, you would agree that the conversation was happening between both of us. I think there's contributions from both of us here for that. If I'm just speaking in a vacuum and nobody else is here, I don't know if I would consider that a conversation.
You said you liked the issue of justifying various issues of belief. Justifying. And I said, justifying. Why justification? I asked you if you knew who Engstrich was, because that's what he was talking about a lot. So this is right on topic for what it is you said, justification of your knowledge. You want to work within the laws of logic. You just want to assume that they are there. But I'm asking you to be consistent with what you initially stated, the justification of the knowledge of those laws of logic. I'm doing nothing but what you required. You're the one backpedaling now. Now, if you want to change and admit that your initial position is, problematic for yourself and you go a different direction, that's fine.
Matt, I don't understand where you came up with this idea of problematic. And I never used the word liked as a pre-qualifier for justification, right? I just mentioned justification as a system for precluding propositions, right? And that's fine. If you feel like anything is going on, any kind of backpedaling is going on, let's both commit to move the conversation forward and not go back to the conversations that we've had previously, or go. There's just there's no need for that, right, Matt? Why would you keep going back to that if we've already moved forward?
You're the one who said, I'll repeat this yet again. You're the one who said you like justification discussions, justifying knowledge, justifications of what you believe. Okay. Now, as I offered you, you can retract that. You can say you don't want to do that. And you can go some other direction.
What I find most perplexing here, Matt, is that not only did I not say that I liked justification, but I clarified just a moment ago that I didn't use that terminology. I didn't say that I like justification, and then you went ahead and just repeated that back to me.
Sorry, I didn't quote you exactly for verbatim of the exact words that you said.
No, but there's a greater issue here, Matt, is that I clarified that that's not what I said, and then you again proceeded to misrepresent the things that I said.
What exactly did you say then?
Oh, I don't know exactly what I said, but I know that I didn't.
Why are you holding me to the same standard? If you don't even know what you yourself said exactly.
Well, Matt, because I clarified it for you about 15
Then how do you
seconds
know?
before
If you clarify, if you
repeated
don't know what you said exactly, how can you clarify if you don't even know what you said?
Well, because I can clarify what I didn't say. You have an issue with the idea of something that I didn't say? Like, I know you didn't talk about Six Flags over Texas, right, in the last conversation, but I may not be able to repeat exactly what you said. Is that reasonable?
What's unreasonable is this conversation. You seem to want to justify your position, your attitude, your save face. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish. So we're not getting anywhere, and we're going in circles.
So
It's because of your agnosticism.
It doesn't seem like it would be a very beneficial activity for you to try to focus on what my intentions are when you can just focus on the context and the conversation that we're having. It seems like that would take less intellectual horsepower to begin with, right? If we
I
just
don't know.
focused on the
Would
Okay.
it for you? Maybe. I don't know.
Well, I believe that it takes less effort to focus on what somebody's intentions are than it is to just listen to the words and respond to them in a logical. Does that seem unreasonable to you?
Oh man, wow. The complexity of statements versus the complexity of intention vary. The statement that you made really doesn't make any sense because you don't know all statements dealing with their intentions or logical statements and their complexity. Come on, man.
So, are you saying that I would need to know all statements and their varying complexity in order to make any
What
statement?
is your game?
No, I'm
What
asking.
is this? What is this? No,
because
no, 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 no. Look.
That's what you
What do you
just
want?
said, Matt, and it didn't make sense to
Okay.
me.
Yeah, look. I don't like doing this where I ask something and then you ask a complex question about whatever it is.
Is
You're
that complex? Is
difficult.
repeat asking you
Here you
if
go
this
again.
is
Here
what
you go
you
again.
just said? A
Matt,
Here you
complex
go
he
again.
might be
question?
trolling. He might be trolling. So I have to tell you, Matt,
I
I'm
think
glad
he's, yeah,
you're
it's
back.
not like he's a
I
troll.
apologize.
Don't do that.
I
No,
He doesn't
apologize
like a
for
troll.
the
don't. What are you
Matt.
doing?
I apologize for the atheist trolls. I was afraid you wouldn't come back. So I want you to know if you just right click on an atheist trolls or rude atheist
I can
name.
get rid of him. I know.
Oh, okay. You know how? Okay, because I was
Yeah.
afraid you weren't going to come back because of that troll last time.
Which fool?
Angstrike.
Yeah, Angstridge, he just played the same game this guy's doing. And, it's like, whatever, play a game, go play someplace else. But you guys cannot justify the three main issues of philosophical necessity in your worldview. Everybody has a worldview. You have to account for rationality, morality, our existence. These are the three main issues and areas. Agnosticism, atheism, materialism, naturalism can't do it. So, we have a discussion. Ultimately, your perspective and your foundation is faulty to begin with.
Why do
There
you
was
actually
also
account for those things?
There was also that hysterical screaming woman last time. I apologize for that.
Oh, the one who cussed when I was in the other room? And I said, hey, why don't you act like a lady?
Yeah, she was so offended that
Taking a hornet's nest,
like a woman.
I didn't mind. I actually didn't mind her because, she was nice later, but I do think that women need to act more ladylike and men need to act more like gentlemen. I mean, I think that's fine.
Matt, can I ask you a question?
He just did. Ask another.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, I understand the argument.